So massive layoffs are hitting Sony starting today. They're laying a bunch of people off in its film and TV divisions.
They said it's across a bunch of stuff too.
Wow.
You know.
Okay, but they said this isn't a cost-cutting thing. This is a strategic move. Basically, what you're telling me is they want to focus on making content for other platforms, not necessarily trying to own the platform.
Yes, that they want to make content for other platforms, and they want to focus on places like YouTube and things like that where they can put free content out, so more people can be watching it and be accessible for people. And they're trying to do things with game shows and different stuff like that. So they're trying to basically take what they have and use it other places, and then I don't know if they're cutting costs or what they're doing with the rest of this stuff, but they're strategically shifting.
Well, it's actually really smart, because if you look at Paramount and you look at Warner Brothers and you look at all these studios that chase the streaming chuck wagon, they blew themselves up, and now they have to consolidate.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, they have to consolidate to survive, because you can't create the platform. It's like I said, it's like being a mom and pop and trying to compete with Amazon. You're better off just making merchandise for Amazon, for Walmart, than you're trying to.
Yeah, and we said this was going to happen, and we said that everybody, these places would have been better off to just make content to sell on the people who are established. They wouldn't have all the overhead. They'd be more nimble. They'd get paid for all their stuff, and then they make profit. And we said this, and they all went headfirst into the wood chipper, but Sony didn't, apparently. And they're trying to refocus.
All right, so let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And this is another day in the life of Hollywood. Hollywood is changing forever. I mean, it's changing very, very quickly, too. But this is coming from the Hollywood Reporter. Sony Pictures Entertainment lays off hundreds as it refocuses on strategic priorities. It said the film and TV studio is cutting roles in some areas as it invests in others, in what sources say is a strategic move, not a cost-cutting one. So they're getting ready for whatever comes next.
So they're, like my mom would say, they're going to zig when everybody else zags.
Which is smart.
Yeah.
I mean, it is smart. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it said
Tubi,
a source.
the same thing with Tubi and Fox.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A source describes the move as being about strategy, not cost cutting. Sony, of course, is unique among the major Hollywood studios in that it has focused on creating original film and TV projects and selling them to networks and streamers rather than trying to own the major streaming platform itself. They do own Crunchyroll. They also, I don't know if they still own Crackle. No, they sold Crackle to like Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yeah, that was sold. They own Crunchyroll. Or they rolled them together, so I forget what it was. But they have that, and they have, PlayStation.
So he said they're doubling down on that strategy while leaning into its strength in anime and sister company PlayStation, with video game-based intellectual property still somewhat underutilized. They plan to expand its game show business. They produced Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. I did not know that, actually.
Game shows are still really big, which I'm surprised by, but they are. I was shocked to hear that, but they're still really popular.
They're going to develop more content on free streaming platforms like YouTube, Reading Rainbow, and develop more owned IP from the likes of Peanuts, which they just acquired, and the PlayStation titles.
Oh, please don't kill Peanuts. For love of God, don't ruin that one.
Oh my God, Peanuts and Fortnite when? No, that'd be epic.
Well, they probably did that already. No, but they're talking about the interesting though. They're saying about their intellectual property associated with PlayStation be underutilized because now everything's video game. We got Sonic and Mario. And there's gonna be a Zelda and like all these different shows and movies. So they're probably seeing that and they're like, well, we have some big titles. We can probably just switch that into those things too.
I can't wait for the Concord movie. That's good.
I was just saying, great. They probably can take some of their popular stuff and then make shows to put on like Netflix or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is actually the way to do it. Like, I know I've been busting Sony's chops lately because of their stupid decisions with the PlayStation, and they've been greenlighting. But I think they're pivoting, and I think part of it is because they've been losing so much. In movie, like they did the Spider-Man villain verse. That was a huge disaster, but they have to make Spider-Man movies every couple of years. They lose the rights to Spider-Man stuff. Honestly, at this point, if I were Sony, if it were me, I'd be like, you know what? Spider-Man's a Marvel thing. They can pay us a couple $2 billion to get him back.
That's true. But they're like behind. They also worked with Netflix on Kpop Demon Hunters.
Yeah.
And everything else, they were the ones who had it, and they sold it to Netflix to do that with. So they have a lot of things in play. I think it's smart. I think the fact that they kept going forward with what they did, and where everybody else was, like you said, switching to making their own streaming service, and like head first in the wood chipper, as you always say. They were all doing that. They still kept to themselves and did their own thing, and it's actually working out for them because they're owning a lot of these big things. Or they might be, in a position where they can afford to do some of these bigger things because they're not like so strapped for cash with their streaming services.
Yeah, and this is a shift that companies make too. Just because a company lays off, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're losing money.
That's true, but here's the thing: at the massive amount of layoffs, I'm not hearing yet any reason why.
Well,
they're saying it's not a financial move, okay, and they're saying that on one side, but I'm not hearing any strong reason why they're laying people off because it doesn't make sense that they're laying people off a pivot. Because I'm not hearing any reasoning why that laying these people off leads to a pivot. Because they're already doing this stuff anyway, and it doesn't sound like, it sounds like they're going to be doing more of the same of what they've already been doing.
Well,
so
I think
it sounds more to me like a cost-cutting measure, but they don't want to say that because it might hit their stocks.
So I don't think it means they're necessarily like. Look, they took a few massive hits, especially on the PlayStation side. They took some massive hits, right? And then they had the Spider-Man movies were not doing good, but they had, some big hits like, Kpop Demon Hunters. But I think they're probably looking, actually, it might be because of Kpop Demon Hunters. They might be looking at that and being like, hey, we partnered with Netflix. We did this thing. This is making more money than the $400 million we spent on the Concord game or the hundreds of millions of dollars we blew in the stupid Spider-Man villain movies, Madame Web. We should just do more of that.
It could be. It could be. That could be why they're getting rid of people. But I still think it's more to do with financial reasons. They just don't want to say that because because nothing they're doing is really pivoting that much. It's already what they've already been doing. So there's no real reason to like make a massive amount of layoffs unless it's because of money.
Unless you're like, okay, of all the 10 things that we did, only 2 of them made money, so we don't need the other 8 teams. Because
that could be, but I'm just like, I don't know. To me, it doesn't. I think it's more cost saving than pivot.
Yeah, I mean, they did take a few hits, though. I mean, they really did. But Sony's like huge. I don't think people were like Sony's
here's the note that was sent out to people.
Okay, so CEO sent this out. Good morning. This is always. It's not a good morning. It'll be a good morning for some of you, but the rest of you, if you find a box on your desk when you come in this morning, put your shit in it and get out the door, right? Today you'll hear about changes they're starting to roll out across the company. I'd like to share some context on how we're refining our organization for the next phase of growth. Over the past year, we have sharpened our strategy and clarified where we believe the greatest opportunities exist. As we lean into those priorities, we need to operate with greater focus, speed and alignment to strengthen our differentiated capabilities. To support our growth, we are aligning our organization with where the business is going, not where it has been. That requires changes to how we are structured and where we invest. Again, we have 10 teams of people. Only 2 of those teams are bringing or 10 things that we do. Only 2 of those things are bringing any meaningful revenue. We divert our resources to those 2 things.
Right, but we get more resources by firing you.
That is true. We get the money to put more money into those 2 things by getting rid of the other 8 things.
Which would still be about money. Anyway.
Well, yeah, it's always about money, right? It is. But I'm just saying, like, doesn't mean it's like, oh my God, we're hemorrhaging cash.
Oh, I'm not saying that, but no. I think it's a matter of it is a money move too.
This is how companies, and this is what we try to explain with Disney. People are like, well, they made a profit on a thing. I'm like, no, you don't understand. How these companies think is, okay, if we spend $1 million and this thing will give us $1,001 in return and we only make $1, or we spend $1 million and we get $10 million in return, where do you think we're going to spend the money? It doesn't matter if it made a profit. It's how much profit it made. And they're going to divert their spend to where it's making the most money, right? So with that, we're reducing roles in certain areas while increasing focus and investment in others that are most critical to our future. Kpop Demon Hunters. This means that some of our colleagues will be leaving the company. If you find a box on your desk, put your shit in it. These are difficult decisions. They impact talented people who have contributed meaningfully to our work and our culture. We're grateful for their contributions, and our P&O teams are committed to supporting them through this transition. I know this kind of change can feel uncertain and raise questions. Over the coming months, business leaders will share more details. They're getting rid of people like today, right?
Right, right away. But they're saying business leaders. I think they're getting rid of people just in general, and it's probably going to be over time. But they're like business leaders are going to explain more in detail, but they're not giving details. I'm noticing. I don't know if it's because they don't want to tip off competitors.
Yes, probably. I mean, probably. But they said, yeah, the partner broadly match projects with right platforms and support our creative partners and bringing great stories to life. So here's the thing. And this is where, labor kind of, it's in the corporate world where the labor comes up against the management's job in the corporate world, not the mom and pops, but in the corporate world, is to maximize shareholder value and make as much money as possible. And when we hire people to, and I'm saying we because I used to work in the corporate world, we would hire people to help us make more money for the shareholders, for the investors, right? And people misunderstand that as I'm going to have a job here forever, and if you get rid of me, it's personal. Sometimes it is. Mostly it's not. And that's the truth of it, right? And that's,
sucks.
It still sucks. I'm not saying it doesn't suck, but like, I think the thing that's the weirdest to me is when you send a letter out, like, let me tell you about the vision for the company. I'm like, bitch, if you're getting fired, you don't give a shit what happens to the company after you get fired,
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I'll just put my shit in the box so you guys can maximize your revenue and go to the board and say, look at all the money we saved. But that's unfortunately how it works. And if you work for any corporation, realize you're probably not going to be a lifer. You're going to be there as long as they need you to do the thing until they decide they want to do a different thing. And that's the truth of it. And this is why we don't have people retiring with a watch at a company they've worked at for 30 or 40 years, unless that company is probably a mom and pop or a family-owned business, or they work their way up the corporate ladder. But you're not going to work in the same department forever for like 40 years. They're going to move your stapler. I mean, that's just the way it works. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up.
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.